Good. My name is Kerry RAMROOP. I was born and raised on the island of Trinidad. That is the most southerly island in the Caribbean. It's a warm, beautiful place. And on the top of the island, we have like blue water and white sand, and our sister island for most of it is blue water and white sand. And I think it has great people and a good culture and good food. So that's where I'm from. Before I moved to the United States, I worked as an oil refinery operator. So I worked with a state-owned oil company, and I worked on the technical side. So to the proper running of the refinery in terms of equipment and just the safety of it. And I moved to the US 9 years ago after I met my wife. She is from the US. And after we fell in love, we decided where to move, and we decided that we'd come to the US. I had been to the US several times on vacation. So I had a travel visitor visa, so I've been to the US more than once. My wife and I actually met on a cruise ship. So I was on vacation and she was on vacation. And on this particular cruise, it was done, part of it was done by our churches that is international. I think there are a couple hundred churches internationally. And every couple of years, they have a cruise for singles in our church worldwide and for marrieds. And on that particular cruise, I was there with some friends from Trinidad, and I was serving different people. And my wife saw me. We actually went on a date. I decided I wanted to encourage people, so I decided to, I will encourage people that are taller than me, shorter than me. I had older, younger, and my wife was the tallest person in the group. She's 6'2". I'm 5'5", so that's a huge difference. And she admired, I guess, my courage and my ability to serve. And she said, I would like to set you up on my friend. So she was working hard and set up her friend who was not on the cruise, and she was coaching me. And, when I got back to Trinidad, we were in the process of talking and coaching. But during that process, we became closer. And eventually, we decided to date, and then we got engaged. And before we got married, we were invited by the leaders of the church to we need to sort of be in the same place. So I quit my job and I moved to the US for about 3 months, and we did marriage counseling. And she was working in San Francisco at that point, and she lived in Redwood City. And I stayed in Redwood, another place in Redwood City. And we got married in Trinidad. So it was it was on the beach side that we got married. And then we decided to move. I moved back to California. And like more or less the week that we moved, she had a job offer in Tacoma, regional vice president. So within a month, she decided to take the offer, and we moved to Tacoma. I think for me, driving on the wrong side, Trinidad is a former British colony. And our cars, steering's on the right side, and the US it's on the left side. So getting accustomed to driving was a challenge, and I think there's definitely a culture shock. You feel sort of out of place. When you're in your home and you're accustomed to doing everything a particular way, that was a huge adjustment. And then the weather, I'm accustomed to a lot warmer weather and the seasons. And I think in my culture, a lot of people, they like to joke around, and we're very friendly because we have people from all around the world. And my wife says, you can't do that here. People are going to think you strange, and they're going to think that you want something from them. And so I really had to really scale back in terms of how I approach people. So I was very shy, but I kind of knew how to talk to people. So no, I actually had to scale back in terms of how I approach people, because people could view that as like you want something, and that's kind of stuck out to me in terms of just that sort of culture shock, that people have that perception that's being friendly could be kind of unusual or weird. So I feel super blessed and super fortunate. My wife's family and I get along really well, but I think some of our closest relationship are in our church, because there are churches all around the churches that we belong to. When we decided to move to Tacoma, when we visited, before we purchased a house, we rented an apartment, and we met with the church here, and we had dinner with the evangelist and stuff a couple of months before we moved, about a month before we moved. And then the day that we flew here, our truck that brought our furniture and everything else had arrived during the day. And then we had movers scheduled to come. The truck arrived and we arrived on a Friday afternoon. And the movers were coming on Saturday. And I called evangelist of the church, Dana. I said, Dana, is there anybody could help us move the bed upstairs because movers are coming the next day? He said, sure. And 12 people from the church came and they unloaded the entire truck, and we got all our stuff in the apartment Friday afternoon. So I mean, that's like welcome to Tacoma, that community. Yeah. I am a nurse. So when I first moved to the US, I didn't have my green card yet, so I couldn't work. So I decided to just, do a lot of reading and studying. So I looked at starting a business, because I know this kind of the American dream, starting a business. So I did explored all the areas that I'm good at. So I started a food truck business, and I had a food truck on Fort Lewis. So I went through the process of purchasing a food truck, learning anything about the health department, getting permits, all the food regulations. I learned about taxes, employees, everything about setting up a business, read books, looked at videos, watched videos. And then I started that business, and I ran it for about a year and a half, and I said, I know I don't really like this. I don't feel that I was just busy all the time, and I wasn't really interacting with people. No, I wasn't really taking care of people. I was just serving people food, but very little interaction. So when I decided to go back to school, I initially, as I said, started to do engineering, and then my wife suggested nursing, and that has been a good fit for me. And I worked at St. Clair Hospital, which is close by to here, and I work in the orthopedic med-surg floor. So I work with surgical patients, and I work with many sort of patients. During the COVID, I became a nurse actually during COVID times. So the heat of COVID, we were there, things were changing crazy, people leaving nursing. It was really tough. Well, I mean, I knew it was a difficult. I've kind of read the stats that like 50% of the nurses generally suffer burnout at some point. But I saw, like, during COVID, some people that they were leaving, and this was not just in our hospital, but a lot of hospitals, because of different challenges that were coming up. So I decided, like, I already made this decision. I'm older. I have to persevere. I have to fight through this. And there's a huge opportunity to help people and to serve people. So I decided to stick it out. I've got to see a lot of things. I feel like I got to help a lot of people. I got to share with a lot of people, get to cry with people. I've seen death at different points, unfortunately. But it overall was a good experience. And I think it has matured me through those difficult times. It says you can't make good sailors if there is calm seas, or good soldiers in times of peace. So I know that the adversity actually helped me to become a better nurse. So I'm able to handle a lot more now as a nurse. So, eventually I feel it's been a good run for me. I didn't like it. I hated it. I was like, I'm going to leave this job. So many times I said that, and then I stuck with it. And my wife encouraged me too as well. So those are the things that really helped me persevere. So yeah. When I first moved to the US, I probably went back every 6 months for probably about the first 2 years, and then after it changed to every year. And now it's kind of like every 3 years or so that I go back and visit family. And it's very encouraging. And I know we spoke a little bit about relationships, and I have some really good relationships in Trinidad, and I have really good relationships here. And I felt like the relationships I have here, I'm a lot closer to the ones in Trinidad. But I'm still close to, a lot of my family members. And I think that whoever's going to move here, that establishing great relationship is the foundation for success. One of the foundations for success, hard work and good relationship, and just being authentic. You serve and you help people out, and then people that help you, and it's not from the same people. I think that's just how life is, karma, I guess. For anyone coming to Tacoma or any place in the US, try to look for resources and establish friendships. I think you don't have to have a lot of friendships, but you have to have good quality friendships. And I think most places have a lot of resources, but you have to search for it. And I think starting a library here is a good place. And asking, I think you have to ask. If you don't ask, you're not gonna know. And I think, uh, like in the first place that I reached out to, I went out to Tacoma Community College and I said, listen, I don't know what to do. I need help. And there are people that met me where I was at and try to help me and say, here's the resources. Here, you can talk to this person. So I just kept talking to different people, met with advisors, you know, go to the writing lab, math center, anything that I needed. I felt like there were so much resources that were available, but people just don't search for it. And then the internet is there. You just search, like you want to start a business, small businesses. There's so much stuff that you could search. You could learn things off of YouTube, but I think you have to have some sort of decision that you are going to make it, and you have to be willing to work for it. And there is going to be disappointments, but you can't give up. So yeah, you just have to fight, and then you'll get it. Yeah.